Hi everyone, I apologise for any glare in the background. When I actually started filming this, it wasn't there, but I restarted it so many times that the sun is there now, and it's the only place in the house that's actually got decent lighting at the minute. I apologise for messing with my hair. I do it a lot. I am aware on videos because I'm quite self-conscious about any gaps and whatnot. So it is Eating Disorder Awareness Week in the UK. Now, it was Eating Disorder Awareness Week in the US last week. So I am going to hopefully do a video every day this week, eating disorder related. So I'm going to start off by saying these videos aren't just for family and friends wanting to learn about eating disorders, and they're not just for people with eating disorders. They are for a wide range of people who are curious, friends and family, even eating disorder professionals who perhaps don't have a clear understanding of individuality of eating disorders, as well as people with eating disorders, to support you in knowing that you're not alone, and a lot of people feel the same way. So I'm going to attempt to start each video with a quote and end it with a quote. So the first quote I want to say is, faith can move mountains. Faith in yourself, faith in the sufferer can move mountains. It can be a huge part of recovery. If I look down at any point during this video, it's because I have a list of points that I want to make. So this video is going to cover things that people with eating disorders want you to know. So first of all, one size doesn't fit all. Just because you may look a certain way doesn't mean that you are. If you're anorexic and a normal weight, it doesn't mean you're not anorexic, and people need to understand that, because commenting on that can be disastrous to the person's health. It isn't a phase. It's not something we've gone through. It's not a teenage phase. It is a long-term health condition, and it is serious. I'm not able to snap out of it. We can't just decide to eat it. It's not, you can't just, as far as I'm concerned, you can't just stop binging or whatever else if you suffer with that. It's not something you can just stop. So don't for any second feel guilty about not being able to do that. We're not the ones lying. This goes for my anorexia. Some of these points are based on anorexia because that's my own personal journey. And some of them, you know, you can pick and choose whether they relate to you or not. I'm not the one lying. I am a terrible liar. If you ask anybody that knows me, I can't lie to save my life. But eating disorder related, if it's to do with food, my anorexia can switch it on in a second. I can lie through my teeth, and it's not me lying. I'm not being manipulative. I become her puppet on a string, if you like. You don't get a day off. It's not something that you can have a day off from, and it's not all about food and calories. There's a lot that goes into an eating disorder. We're not judging you. We're not looking at your size and your shape and judging you, because in the nicest possible way, our eating disorders couldn't give a damn. It's about us and only us. We are the ones with the high standards of ourselves. We are the ones that are emotionally suffering and the ones that are dealing with this illness, not you. So we're not judging you. Comments on my food choices or my portions or whatever it is are not helpful. I'm already insecure about eating. Highlighting that is actually disastrous to either my recovery or my state of mind at the time. Some people find it easier to eat sweets or fruit or veg or whatever it is. You know, I know people that drink energy drinks or smoothies, and it's not something you can judge that person for, because everyone's eating disorder is different. I've had people comment on my portions before when I've been in recovery, and it's really, really affected how I go about that. Quite often I'll then go off that item of food and not want to eat it. If someone is to criticise me during my worst, when I choose to eat something, I find it very difficult to then allow myself to eat that again in the future. So telling someone that's in recovery that you look better, healthier, or much better is actually really, really not helpful. It's like a stab in the gut. We are already feeling guilty about recovery, and you telling us that is not helpful to know, because that in our mind means you gained weight, which quite often can lead you to believe that you're fat. The more that I fall into my eating disorder, the harder it gets. Now, I can't actually... this isn't something that will fully apply to me, but it's something that I highlight at Pixie's Project Talks, is that, you know, just because you can't see the eating disorder doesn't mean it's not there. And by the time you see it, quite often it's too late, and that person's already way into their eating disorder, and it becomes harder to get them back out of it. healthy weight does not mean that you are better. It does not mean that you are not deserving of help or support, and it doesn't mean that your loved one is fine, because it's something that we have to fight every single day to do, and it is really, really difficult for us to recover. It's not a choice. We don't wake up, and I know there's a community out there that I won't name, who I have unfortunately had experience with in terms of inappropriate comments towards myself. It's not a case of choosing this. You can't promote it as a lifestyle. It's not something that you can decide you are. It's a serious illness. It is way, way, way ingrained into your brain. I didn't wake up at 7 years old and think I'm going to be anorexic, because I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. So, you know, we don't wake up and decide to be a certain way. You don't wake up and decide to be bulimic or anything like that. It's just not something that we choose. It becomes a comfort blanket. Quite often, if things go wrong in my life, or things are stressful, or I feel out of control, or I don't like how my body, anything like that, it's my comfort blanket. I will run back to it. It is like my anorexia has open arms and ready to embrace me and make me feel better. In a sense, it becomes your best friend, because your entire life revolves around it. It becomes your best friend. And we don't mean to push you aside. We don't mean to distance ourselves from you or make you any less important. Unfortunately, it is simply because we have become so just drawn in by this illness that it's really hard for us to then notice anything else. We are champions at covering up our feelings. We are champions at covering anything eating disorder related or emotionally related, because we are so used to putting on that mask and pretending that everything's okay. Please do not diet talk in front of someone with an eating disorder. It can be extremely triggering and extremely just uncomfortable for the sufferer to have to listen to and deal with. Quite often this happens around dinner tables. I've been in situations where I've sat at a dinner table and people have commented on someone else's weight loss at the table, which will make me competitive with that person, or feel like I need to lose more weight. And also, you know, promoting a diet can make me then feel like I need to do that diet because I think I'm fat. I'm not fishing for compliments. We don't fish for compliments by saying, do I look fat, or, oh, I look disgusting. We're not fishing for compliments. It is how we feel. We aren't trying to get you to say different. We still need you regardless of what we say, regardless of how much we push you away. We still need you to be in our corner and support us and fight for us, but we don't need you to force feed us. We don't need someone to tell us what we need to eat, because quite often than not, we are aware, or are in the belief that we don't need to. I personally will also say that it is a jealousy thing as well. If I look at you and you're eating something I want, I get very, very jealous, because I don't understand how you can do that. You know, I'm often called a feeder. It's because I give people what I would want to eat but can't eat, and so that's how it is, really. It's a lonely, lonely illness. It doesn't matter how many people you've got around you. At the end of the day, you are trapped with your eating disorder in your own brain, and there is no escape, and it is very, very, very lonely. It's a serious, serious illness, much like cancer or diabetes or asthma or anaphylaxis or any other chronic illness that is life-threatening. Anorexia in particular has one of the highest mortality rates of any psychiatric illness. These disorders are chronic. They take lives. They're not something that can be overlooked. It's not a choice. It's not something that should be overlooked, because it is just as serious as any other physical condition. Don't think that we are being defensive because we are angry with you. We're quite often angry with ourselves, or the eating disorder gets rattled up and basically pushes itself forward and takes control of the situation to just sort of say, you know, back off. I'm in charge here, not you and not her or him. What else am I on? Let's see. I'm not trying to be beautiful. I'm not trying to conform to media standards of beautiful. I'm not looking at models and going, that's what I want to look like. By all means, you know, when you've got an eating disorder, looking online and seeing perfect bodies is difficult to accept, but I'm not striving to look like that. It makes me hate my body, and quite often can trigger a lot of issues, but I'm not physically starving myself or being anorexic because I want to look like that. In my own mind, there's a lot of other things that are affecting that. Not everyone with an eating disorder comes from a bad family. And that's not to criticize people that have had bad home lives. When I was under CAMS, I was basically, my parents were interrogated, like, you know, did this ever happen? Did that ever happen? Basically telling them that they must have caused it, because that's what happens with eating disorders, right? No, it's not something that just happened. It's not that at all. It can happen to anybody, any background. It doesn't discriminate. It's not glamorous. It's not something that, you know, quite often than not is portrayed in the media as being like glamorous or the new phase or something like that. It's not glamorous, you know, passing out in school or losing your hair. There's so many things about this illness that are not glamorous at all. You know, lying in a hospital bed with a catheter in as a 20-year-old is not glamorous. It's not something that you choose. Okay, so my phone ran out of storage, which don't even speak to me about, because this phone is doing my head in at the minute. Anyway, back to where we were. It's not glamorous, and also eating in front of someone is a huge compliment. Like, that means we trust you, because quite often we feel very insecure about eating, especially when you're labelled with an eating disorder. I find it very difficult to eat in front of people because suddenly they assume you're okay, and it's very, very difficult. We don't expect you to understand. We don't expect you to understand our eating disorders, because it's an eating disorder. It's a mental illness. You don't have it, so why would you understand? We don't expect you to. Why would we expect you to? I mean, I don't expect people to understand how I can go against the survival technique that is eating. I don't expect you to understand how, you know, the primeval side of every single human being is to feed themselves. Every species is to eat something, and I can't do that. I'm not going to expect you to understand that, because it's not normal. I think that's everything that I want to cover at the minute. They are some of the things that I can think of off by heart that I personally would want people to know about eating disorders. A lot of those are really personal to me. A lot of them are things that I've heard from other people and I personally don't suffer with. But it is so, so important for people to understand that there are so many things that we need to educate people who don't have eating disorders. Sorry, thank you for that, Mother, for texting me and making the whole phone move. It's really hard for people to educate people in a week. It's not something that's easy. It's something that deserves more recognition and more awareness. It can't be taught in a week. So to close the video, let's just use another quote. Let's pick one from my book of random quotes. Okay. Hang on when the winds are blowing. Remember, storms are the birthplace of rainbows. Quite a lot of these quotes I did whilst I was in some treatment programs, and part of them are just things that I've heard along the way that I quite like. So as I say, I will try and include one every day, if not two, and let's try and learn a bit about eating disorders and educate about eating disorders this week. Bye.